The extradition trial for Julian Assange is underway in the United Kingdom, and if the U.S. Justice Department is successful in winning the case against him, Assange will be brought back to the U.S. and imprisoned for an unimaginable term of 175 years. If you aren't familiar with the case, Assange is the publisher of WikiLeaks, the data trove outlet that releases whatever documents are sent to them. It's the documents published through WikiLeaks that has put Assange in the crosshairs of the U.S. government. The charges leveled against him are that he published classified information, conspired with Chelsea Manning, and there are new charges alleging that he conspired with hacker organizations and tried to recruit hackers to provide him classified information at conferences in Europe and Asia for hacking. I feel like it seems like if there's a conference for so-called hackers, then there can't be a whole lot of clandestine operating going on there since, it's a whole conference. But that's another discussion. Aside from the fact that the charges are bogus, what the U.S. is really after Assange for is revealing the depths of the depravity and criminality of the U.S. government, not only in war, but of U.S. politicians in electoral campaigns. Remember that it was through WikiLeaks Vault 7 that we learned that the CIA was working on breaking into people's smartphones and computers through various kinds of malware and spyware and other means. And here we are regularly talking about how law enforcement is breaking into people's Android, iPhone, and computer devices and tracking your data and location, whether you have the location settings on or not. We also learned about the CIA wanting to use smart TVs to spy on people through a program they called Weeping Angel. And although the name might remind sci-fi fans like myself of the Doctor Who episode about the monstrous angel statues that sneak up on you when you're not looking, the lack of security of smart TVs has been a topic of legitimate concern in the consumer marketplace, although the focus is not directed toward the FBI or CIA spying on you, but on the electronics manufacturers themselves, allegedly collecting a bunch of data. But what do you think they're doing with it? We know where all that started, thanks to WikiLeaks. But that's just the most recent stuff. The information the U.S. is most angry at Assange for involves the revelations about the standard operating procedures for the Guantanamo Bay prison camp Delta that was released in 2007 that revealed the Army's policy of denying the Red Cross access to some prisoners and putting others in solitary for 2 weeks to make them more compliant to interrogation. And that sounds like torture to me. Then, of course, there's the video footage of the U.S. Apache helicopter pilot that fired on civilians in Baghdad in 2010. This is the information that exposed 15,000 civilian casualties in Iraq that had not been released that was in these documents. The U.S. Army would never have divulged it if these documents had not been published in WikiLeaks. This is what Chelsea Manning was arrested and imprisoned for. After having her initial 35-year sentence commuted by President Obama to the 7 that she had already served, she was released in 2017, but she was jailed again after she refused to testify against Assange in front of a grand jury in 2019. She was released in March of this year, but was hit with a $256,000 fine for refusing to testify against Julian Assange. The Obama administration didn't look kindly on WikiLeaks' release of the State Department cables in 2010 that revealed the secret drone strikes the U.S. committed in Yemen. Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, called the release of the evidence of U.S. dirty dealings, not just in Yemen, but also the secret efforts to get information on UN representatives and the effort by Saudi Arabia to get the U.S. to attack Iran as an attack on the international community. That's what Hillary Clinton called the release of this evidence. Funny, the spying and lying the U.S. government was doing wasn't the attack on the international community, but according to Clinton, exposing this information was. And of course, there are the emails from the DNC server that were published in 2016 that proved the DNC's strategy to sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign, to dismiss any commitment to legislation suggested by Black Lives Matter activists, and to collude with the media to elevate the top worst 3 Republican candidates in a strategy they called the Pied Piper strategy that was supposed to show Clinton to be far and away the best candidate out of all the worst Republicans, and everyone else would, of course, flock to vote for Clinton. One of those Republican candidates that the DNC Pied Piper strategy knowingly elevated was Donald Trump. I recounted all of that to make the point that everything that WikiLeaks has published is absolutely true. There's not been one incident where a document published on the platform has been proven to be false. But of course, that's not the government's argument, whether the information is accurate or not. They know it is. This is why they're not disputing the information itself, but they're challenging Assange's status as a journalist, which would afford him constitutional protection under the First Amendment's Freedom of the Press Clause. And they're alleging that he is a spy, trafficking, not publishing, classified information, charging him under the Espionage Act. In short, Assange, Manning, as well as Edward Snowden have embarrassed the powers that be in the U.S. government for too long, and Assange is being made an example of, especially since a U.S. Court of Appeals has just ruled that the NSA surveillance program that focused on millions of Americans' phone records that Edward Snowden exposed in 2013 was in fact illegal, basically proving Snowden right. The U.S. government is not going to let all 3 of these whistleblowers get away free. One of them is going to have to pay. So they're putting all their efforts into demolishing Julian Assange. They know that they're effectively putting independent journalism on trial too, because that's what they want to do. They want to send a message that they, the U.S. government, decides who is or is not a journalist and what the journalists they approve can publish. If Julian Assange, whose health is on the decline, dies during an extradition or prison sentence that I hope does not happen, then so be it. That's how the U.S. government feels. And if a truly independent fourth estate that is committed to holding the powers that be accountable for their actions also dies in the process, then this regime in the U.S. would have accomplished its goal. This has always been much bigger than Julian Assange. We are the fourth estate. Follow Luqman Nation on patreon.com/LuqmanNation for lots of great content.